So what I look for is also like how big their Twitter is and how engaged their Twitter is. So, they might buy followers. So you want to look for how engaged is the Twitter. And kia ora, kia ora. Welcome to that NFT podcast with Kieran Headley, myself. And I'm very much looking forward to this episode. I've been anticipating actually speaking about NFTs themselves and what I'm invested in, what I look for, why I look for those things. So we're going to be covering that very briefly in this episode. I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible in this one. Now, if you don't understand exactly what NFTs are, if you're looking at how to set yourself up to invest in NFTs, go and look at the earlier episodes. Also, the most recent episode, I spoke about the future of NFTs, what NFTs are going to look like in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so sort of that time frame of years, right? And that all really is the overarching thing that I sort of look at when I'm thinking about which NFTs to buy. Now, don't get me wrong, I do quite a bit of flipping as well, okay? So I'll speak a little bit about that. I'll speak about my successes, I'll speak about my losses and why I think they're successes and why I think they're losses. So there's been situations where I've lost a few $100s. I think the most I've lost on a project is maybe $800 US, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, it's not in the NFT game. And then I've made, with quick flips alone, I've made about $3,000 US in the space of 12 hours once. And that was on a project called Galactic Apes. Now, Galactic Apes is a baby of another project called Galactic Apes Genesis. So if I was to get that project up right now, at the time it was worth about 20 ETH floor, 20 ETH. Okay, so 1 ETH is about 5,200 New Zealand dollars at the time of this episode. Not sure what that is in USD exactly. Sorry, Americans. But Galactic Ape Genesis right now, for example, all right, if I go Galactic Ape Genesis, also my internet's fairly slow, so when I do actually search for a project, it takes a little while. That project at the moment is worth at a floor. Holy crap! Okay, well, there you go. I haven't looked at it in about 2 or 3 weeks, and it's gone from 20 ETH floor to a 65 ETH floor. That is insane. All right, so literally it's worth, if I go 65 times 5, that's about $325,000 New Zealand. So it's literally grown from, what's that? No, that should be more than that, right? No, that's about right. So it's literally gone from, what's 20 times? So it's gone from a $100,000 investment in 3 weeks to a $325,000 investment minimum, by the way. That's floor price means the minimum that you can go in on that project, and it fluctuates. Now, Galactic Apes themselves, right? And I'll talk about how I found the project and how I went on it on the right time and all that sort of thing. At the moment, the floor of Galactic Apes itself is only 1.9 ETH, right? Now, when I got in, it was, I got in at 0.2 ETH, and then I sold at 0.6 ETH. The floor dropped again straight after I sold. I was really lucky, and also a little bit of tactics as well. It dropped back down to about 0.4 ETH, so yeah, about 0.4 ETH, and then I bought in again, and then it went all the way up to 0.9 ETH. I sold just under 1 ETH, and then I bought in again. This time I bought 2, just under 1 ETH, because I'm like, oh, no, this is going to go up again. So I bought in again, and yeah, it ended up going up a whole another ETH. So I made quite a bit of money in that one. So I made $3,000 in the first 12-ish hours, and then I bought 2, held, sold one at about 1.4 ETH, and then I sold another at about 2 ETH. So basically, in total, in the space of like a week, I made like, it's like maybe $7,000-8,000 on that one project, which is crazy, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I've lost on a few projects, right? And I'm going to speak about what I lost on, why I lost, and also a rug pull I was associated with. Not associated with directly myself, but I was involved in the project, and they pulled it beneath me, and then I lost like $300-400, which isn't too bad. So yeah, we're going to speak a little bit about this stuff today. So let's get into it, although we basically already are. I'm excited as well. Next episode, I'll speak a little bit about what investments are great for people just getting into the game, that are great long-term investments that are under half an ETH. Okay, now don't get me wrong. There's a few potential great long-term investments that are, very affordable that probably won't actually be that great, honestly, long-term either. But then there's also some pretty great ones that are around about sort of, 0.2, 3, 4 ETH. So yeah, that's actually pretty low in terms of a investment that I would think would be a great long-term investment. Normally you sort of think of the long-term investments that would, they're normally around about the sort of 1.5, 2 to 3 ETH mark. In terms of an investment, because they've already got an established community. They've got a lot of people holding, knowing that it's going to be long-term. It's got a great roadmap going forward for the next 12 to 24 months. So those are sort of things that, I really look at when it comes to these sort of long-term investments. And we're going to speak a lot more about that next episode, about maybe a more lower tier long-term investment that you could go for. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit more about what I've got right now. All right, and why I got it. Now, I must say that a lot of the things that I've got right now aren't very good investments, honestly. A lot of them are just sort of fun play arounds, and I lose money. I do. Like I said, I'll lose a few $100 here and there. And on the ones that I've got currently, some of them I might make some money, and some of them I'm going to lose some money. I already know that. It's just basically at the time I'm a little bit impulsive when I see them. Oh, this looks like it might be a bit fun. I'm going to jump in and see what happens. And it helps me learn because I get more involved with the project. Now, I've got the money to do that, right? And I know not everyone listening to this show will exactly have the money to do that. And I understand that, right? So that's why I want to do this for you, instead of you having to do it, right? So I can learn as much as I can about the market, about NFTs themselves, about human psychology that comes into this, the patterns and all that sort of thing, and then I can share it, right? Now, before I share more about, so I can make the mistakes for you, right? But before I share all about that, I want to share about the random, if you've set yourself up on OpenSea, you've connected your MetaMask wallet to OpenSea, which is the eBay of Ethereum NFTs, then you'll notice as well that you'll just randomly get little pop-up NFTs in your wallet. It's the weirdest thing, right? Like right now I've got this Rick Universe one, which is so weird. I've got, what else do I have that's random? I've got Long Animal. No idea what that is. And then I've got Top V Fan. And those are the only three really that I got at the moment in my wallet. I got some in my hidden. If I go to hidden, I've got some other ones that are, it's got Anubis Egyptian and Kyum Egyptian. So these are random ones. If you just see some random NFTs pop up in your wallet for no particular reason, and you haven't been notified through any of the Discords that you're involved in, okay, I'll speak a little bit about Discords today as well, then you want to leave it. You don't want to touch it. You don't want to hide it. You don't want to sell it. You don't want to try to delete it. You don't want to try to do anything with it. Basically anything that you do is going to mean that you're going to need to press sign on your MetaMask, which initiates this concept that MetaMask has to do an action with it, right? Now, anything that your MetaMask gets authority to do an action with means that that particular project has some sort of integration with your MetaMask at that point in time. Now, this is a scary thing because I know of people that have literally lost $30,000 in the blink of an eye because people have tried to get rid of hidden items in their MetaMask, or they've tried to someone's private messaged them on Discord. Never ever reply to a private message, all right, unless you actually know the person on Discord. You can reply, but don't actually follow through with a lot of the things they'll say. A lot of them will be like, hey, come mint on this project. And it might be like, this project that's already 1 day old and it's already worth like, half an ETH or 1 ETH. And they're like, hey, you can still mint it for 0.05 ETH, right? Of course, if that was real, it would be a no-brainer. It would be like, well, obviously, if I just mint this right now, I instantly make $2,500. Boom, amazing. Why wouldn't I? But the problem is a lot of these are fake, right? So you go mint it, you'll pay your ETH, and you'll get nothing in return. So it's like, you even get like a fake one. There's a lot of fake ones on OpenSea. Like if I go and search CryptoPunks, I guarantee I'll find a lot of fake CryptoPunks. If I went and searched even one that I've got, which is the Crypto Ape, right? The space Crypto Space Ape is one I've got now, and it's honestly a terrible investment. I doubt it will do any good long term. I'm going to sell it for not much more than I got it. But there is one on OpenSea, and it's not even a popular one, right? It's literally only got 1,000 items. Normally, most projects have about 10,000 items within their NFT project, and roughly, right? And there's one out there that I found, which is the Crypto Ape with no space, or the Crypto Apes with no space, right? Now, there's only like 100 of them, right? However, they're still selling. People are still buying them, and it's definitely a bit sketchy because it's literally an exact copy of the main project. However, it's unfortunate because I feel like people might have been scammed and people would have bought into the fake project, think it was a real one. And yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. So don't just go and click on random links that you get sent by random people. That is not going to be a profitable situation for you. I guarantee it. And like I said, just, don't try to do anything with any of the, like, I've got some random ones in my wallet. Just don't do anything with them. Sometimes you might be lucky and you might be involved in a project where that project absolutely loves their community and is like, hey, I'm going to give some random people in our community some free NFTs. And that happens, right? It hasn't happened to me yet. But hey, fingers crossed, it might happen. But the point is they'll notify me, right? I will know because there'll be some announcement and they'll say, hey, winners are at Coach Keza, yeah, right? So that's something that hasn't happened, and like I said, it could. So that's when you know that, okay, well, it's an NFT that you got dropped in that is official. So yeah, in a nutshell, just don't touch any of the dropped in NFTs, only touch the ones you know you purchased. Cool. So now, projects that I'm involved in right now, my favorite project I'm involved in obviously is VeeFriends. If you haven't listened to my other episodes, I have a VeeFriend, I have a Karma Kiwi, and it at one point was worth 24 Ethereum, right? Which is equivalent to what's that? About 120,000 New Zealand dollars, just over that actually at the moment. At one point it was worth that. I bought in for 0.9 ETH, so just under 5,000 New Zealand dollars. So as you can see, that is a massive return, and that was in the space of 4 months. Since then, about a month ago, it dropped down again, so now it's worth around about 70,000 New Zealand. But it will go back up. That's just the nature of this kind of industry, this kind of space. It's a very volatile space, and it will absolutely, in the long run, be a very profitable situation and very grand situation because the growth rate of the NFT space is extraordinary. It's growing faster than any other tech concept, from my understanding, that has existed, from my understanding anyway. Even faster than how fast Bitcoin grew, right? So that's what's crazy about it. Now, so some of them that I'm invested in now are that. Other than that, okay, because the only reason why I got into VeeFriends with my Karma Kiwi is because I trusted in the individual behind the project. So if you're really interested in getting into NFTs, and you have someone that you look up to in the business space that is launching an NFT project, that's probably a very safe bet, because first of all, you're there to support that person that you admire. And secondly, if you think that and you trust this person's advice, you're probably as well going to trust their ability to create a profitable project for their community with the NFT project. So Gary Vaynerchuk created 10,255 VeeFriend tokens, right? And a lot of people were skeptical about it. A lot of people thought he was just doing a money grab because they didn't really understand Gary Vaynerchuk. But myself and many others that decided to jump in did. And they're like, you know what? I trust Gary. I trust that he's going to help make this a profitable thing. Plus, there were various contractable and profitable aspects to it. So, for example, in the smart contract of my VeeFriend, I get 3 years in a row free attendance to VeeCon, which is going to be for this year, in 2022, which is in May 2022. It's going to be in Minneapolis in Minnesota. It's a 4-day business event where a bunch of business leaders from all over the world are going to be there, and I get to go. It's amazing. I'm so excited. And I get to go simply because I have a VeeFriend, and no other people get entry unless I have a VeeFriend, or they've been specifically invited because they're there as a speaker or as a host of some sort. So yeah, because of that, that's why I invested in VeeFriends initially. Now, there's also another project coming up where I very firmly believe in the project, and the overarching name of it is called Impact Theory, okay, by Tom Ballou. So Tom Ballou, Bilyeu. I guarantee that if you follow him, you'll learn a lot about NFTs. He's fantastic at explaining it, same as Gary Vee. And he has his own project launching on the 13th of October called the Founder's Key. Okay, and I am absolutely going in on that, right? The price initially is at 3 ETH to get his top tier Founder's Key. Then he's got the Heroes tier, which is a tier below that at 1.5 ETH. Then he's got, the tier below that, which is a third tier, and I can't remember what it's called, but that's at 0.05 ETH. So it's much cheaper, right? And there's a huge difference. So basically the Founder's Key gets you access like to a quarterly dinner, right? With Tom Ballou and a bunch of other amazing people. It also gets you amazing access in many other ways, right? And only 2,700 of them will be made. All right, now then he's got his hero tier where I think it's like, I don't know, 7,000 and something of them are going to be made. Then he's got his other tier, which is going to be like 12,000 of them or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but that is absolutely a project I'm getting involved in. I'm going to try get one Founder's Key. Okay, then I'm going to get one of as many of as I can of the lower tier ones as well, because I already know that anything with his name on it, he's going to do his best to take it to the moon. All right, so these are things that I look for. That's the biggest thing that I look for is the person behind it. Alex Becker, who is massive in the NFT space, he launched a project like just over a week ago. I can't remember exactly what it's called now, but within the space of a week, he got it to like an 8, 9, or 10 ETH floor, which is crazy for a project. There was another project that's not related to someone behind it, but it was based on the community factor, which is another beautiful thing that you'd look for. The community factor is the fact that there's such a strong community and such a strong demand that it instantly creates a stronger perceived value of that project. It's called Mechaverse. It got launched yesterday, and I missed out because basically how it worked is that you had to apply for this raffle. Now, over 150,000 people, I think, almost 150,000 people applied for this raffle, and there was only 8,888 Mechaverse tokens that were available. Now, as you can see, that's an insane amount of demand, and let alone they have over 250,000 followers on Twitter, plus almost 250,000 in their Discord. So it is insanity in terms of the amount of people that were involved and the amount of overall tokens there were. So obviously demand versus supply is very different. There's a big gap, and that's what drove the price up so quickly. So those that got to mint it meaning you got to buy it from the source rather than on the eBay, which is OpenSea, right? You got to buy it from the actual website itself. You got to mint, so you paid the bottom price that you could possibly pay, which is 0.2 Ethereum or Ether, sorry. And people that got the opportunity to do that instantly made 25,000 New Zealand dollars per mecha that they got. It was either one or two. There was no more than two that you could mint. And this is a crazy thing, right? Is literally the moment that it came onto secondary sales in terms of when it was listed on OpenSea, the moment it was listed, I went straight to a minimum of a 5 Ether floor. Right now it's at about a 6 Ether floor, so it's worth a minimum of 30,000 New Zealand dollars per token, which is just crazy. That was within the space of 0 minutes. From the moment it launched, it was worth that, which is just crazy, right? So there was some very happy people out there, and I actually know personally one of them. But there were many people that didn't make it, including myself, including my mother. I actually got her to get one, or try to, apply for it. Now, that was because of course, like I said, it was a community-based thing. So because there was so much demand and there was so little supply, it drove up the overall price. It's like with gold, right? Naturally, there is only so much gold in the world, and because it's finite, and there's a huge demand for it, it instantly drives up the perceived value of what gold is, right? At one point, gold was more worthless than titanium, right? Which is crazy, right? You think titanium, like literally, literally it's so much cheaper now than gold, but because of the perceived factor that it was harder to get, it was harder to mine, it was harder to create into a product that they could use. Its perceived value was much higher than gold previously. Now, of course, they've been able to create certain tools that allow for easeful mining of this, and therefore, its perceived value is much lower than gold now because it's so much more accessible, and because there is so much more supply, right, and less demand. So that's all this whole concept of value is. Now, there are other things to look for, right? So Discord is a social media platform that originally was used for gamers, interestingly enough. Now, on Discord, it's like almost like sort of like a Reddit in a way, if you've ever used Reddit. And what it's got is, if you go into a particular Discord, say I went into the VFriends Discord, right? I have a bunch of different segments that I can go into, or threads, and I go into a thread and it might be an announcement thread, so it's all the announcements for that project go in there. Then there'll be a general thread, and everyone that is involved in the Discord can chat in the general thread. Then there'll be a rules, so the rules of that particular Discord. Then there'll be a facts, so frequently asked questions section, right? Then there'll be voice channels, and there'll be all these other channels and threads that you can jump into. So that's what the Discord is that it's a place where the community of that project can get involved. So what I look for is also like how big their Twitter is and how engaged their Twitter is. So, they might buy followers, so you want to look for how engaged is the Twitter. Do they have a lot of likes and comments on everything, right? And then also as well, are people that I know in the NFT space that I trust, are they following this project? If they're following the project, it's something I might be interested in. For example, Zombie Toads, right? Gary Vaynerchuk's brother. I can't remember his first name, Andre Vaynerchuk, or something like that. I saw that he bought into Zombie Toads. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Essentially, you can earn, quote unquote, dollars to use in the metaverse. And I'll speak about the metaverse on another podcast episode. You can stake your zombie toad, and you can accrue these tokens that you can use in the metaverse as money, right? Now, I saw that he got into it, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, cool, I trust him. And also as well, I thought it was a cool project, so I jumped in, and this is sort of like more for me a quick flip, so we'll see what happens. I got in at 0.45, and right now it's probably worth less than that, to be honest. So I've probably lost money technically, but over, if I keep it for another day or two, it might go up. So who knows? We'll see. But yeah, so it's like, these are just interesting projects that I sort of play around with, if you get what I mean. But that's definitely something that I'll look for. And then with the Discord thing, I also, when I go in on that, so there we go. Zombie Toes is 0.44. So it's basically the same as what I bought it for. All right, so we'll just see what happens. But then I'll go into the Discord and I'll have a look at, how engaged is the Discord, how excited and how committed are these people to the Discord of that project as well, in terms of the community itself. So those are things that I look for specifically, right? If there is a project that has a very low number of people in the Discord and in the Twitter, even if people are speaking about it, I probably won't get in personally, except for certain situations like Avatar. I got into this one, Avatar, this morning. I minted it for 0.07 Ether, right? Because a friend of mine told me about it. And also it's, there's a Kiwi-based artist that is building these AI, which is Avatar, right? It is an AI-derived NFT. So it's got 6,000 responses to 6,000 different questions. There's no other NFT like it that I know of, which is so cool. And it hasn't revealed itself yet, but it's got like this almost really interesting sort of like Wally sort of look, Wally sort of vibe, like Wally, that. And I like, it doesn't have much of a following at all, but I think it has great long-term potential, right? So right now the floor is less than what I brought it for, and I'm okay with that because I know long-term it's going to do really well. That's what I feel. I feel that long-term it will do well based on that, even though the community is very small, because I know that the community will grow, right? Simply because the Kiwi-based artist was also as well involved as a Marvel artist, from my understanding. And you'll have to, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to excuse the lighting as well. It's sort of, it's not going to look good right now. But hey, you're here for the words that I say, not for my terribly, terribly yummy face. I'm just kidding. horribly yummy. I don't know. That's terrible. What's the word when you say? What's the word when you say something opposite? I can't remember now. Like a quiet bang. That one. Now, so other projects that I am involved in. Okay, so like I said, there's the Crypto Ape, which was just a sort of fun one to get into, see if it maybe popped off similar to Galactic Apes, but it didn't, and I don't know if it ever will, so I'm just happy sort of selling it even for a little bit of loss. I've also got Froggy's Beginners, or Froggy, what is it? Froggy's Begin something. So this Froggy's Beginnings, right? So I just saw this one. I saw it on the OpenSea stats. So if you go to OpenSea and you go to stats and you go to rankings, you'll be able to see in the last 24 hours what's been popping off, what's been going really well. And Froggy's Beginnings was on that. I saw it. It was growing really fast. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I jumped in on it. And it's going terribly. No, it's honestly, it's sitting around the same price as what I got in for. And then I also got into Cryptodes, which is the baby of, what is it? Sorry, I got into Sane Toads, which is a baby of Cryptodes. So if you go to Cryptodes, the floor of that is about, almost 10 ETH. At one point it was 12 ETH, like yesterday or 2 days ago. And because baby projects of big projects like Galactic Apes usually do well long term, that's why I sort of got into it. So that's more of a long term one for me. I'm just happy whether or not whatever happens with that. An interesting one that I got in on literally just before this podcast was called Fly Frogs. Okay, now these are just sort of quick flip ones. These aren't ones that I look for long term, by the way. Now Fly Frogs is an interesting one. I've no clue what the heck this is. I just aped in, which means that I got in on this project and I have no clue what this is. I just sort of saw it, and I saw it on a tool that I like to use called Icy Tools. Okay, oh great, I've made money. All right, so Icy Tools is icy.tools. That's literally the website. Just go icy.tools in your web browser, and it comes up with this really cool tool that you can see what's happened in the last 1 hour, whereas OpenSea only lets you see what's happened in the last 24 hours as the sort of overarching overview, right? And that doesn't really give you a good idea, because it could have been at 23 hours ago that it did really well and now it's dropping, right? So even though you might see a massive growth, you might jump on it, and this is something I really had to learn, and I'm still learning it. I jumped on it, and I'm like, I'll jump on it and I'll be like, oh cool, like this is growing, I'll buy into it, and all of a sudden it will drop. I'm like, what the heck, it was growing? Yeah, it was growing. It wasn't at the start of the growth, it was at the end of the growth curve. Whereas I saw Fly Frogs in the last 1 or 2 hours, it had grown immensely in terms of the floor, but it hadn't grown in the last 12 hours. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because it hasn't grown in the last, over that 12-hour period, the growth rate was the same as what it was in the last 2 hours, which means it was only really the last 2 hours that this project started growing. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I jumped in on it at 0.145. It's now worth a minimum of 0.19. So there you go. So basically I've made 0.035 ETH, which isn't much, in crypto space, but hey, it's growing, and I only bought it like an hour ago, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, these are sort of things that I just really look for when I'm sort of flipping it, as I look at the overall growth curve. Is it at the start of its growth, or is it at the end of its growth? If it's the end of the growth, obviously that's not something I'm going to get into, and that's what I'm learning. I'm learning how to find that. But if it's at the start of its growth, like Fly Frogs was, right, when I got into it, then you're going to make some money, but you've got to be able to learn how to find that, right? Or is it just something that just happens to decide to grow for 1 hour only and then dies off? So you've got to really, by observing the market, you'll start to get an understanding of how that works. I got into Roaring Leaders. It's really cool. It's basically like a growth fund. So you sort of, when you buy into it, they've also purchased a bunch of really successful NFTs, such as Bored Ape Yacht Club and Cool Cats, and some other projects like that, I believe. And the fund is worth over over $500,000. So basically, what this means is any profit that they make from this fund, okay, is like a small percentage of it, I think 3%, goes to the community. So anyone that owns a Roaring Leaders gets a small portion of that, right? 1/10,000th of it. So I bought into that. I thought it was a cool concept. I'm just going to hold that for a while, see what happens. I also got, like I said, I got the zombie toads. I also got Candy Digital. So that's something that Gary Vaynerchuk is peering with. He's doing a peering with Candy Digital and doing a project at the end of this month. It's October right now if you're listening to it. All right, and that's why I bought into the original version just to see if what happens. Maybe it'll grow, maybe it won't. That was just a fun one. Bought in for very cheap. Then I bought into a terrible project, which I didn't. I reckon long term will do great, honestly, but right now, nope. It's called CryptoZilla. I brought in. See, this is a good example where I lost a bit of money. I bought in at 1.29. Yeah, 1.299 Ether. Okay, so that's maybe $7,000, and now I'm trying to sell it at 0.97 Ether. So I'm hoping it will sell because I need to get enough Ether or Ethereum to buy into this Impact Theory Founders token. Oh my goodness, the light is so bright. Which will mean that, I need 3 Ether in my account, and right now I don't have that 3 Ether. So that's another project that I've got, and I've lost on that project. Absolutely. I'm very happy to just get rid of it right now. And it's not really, there's not really many sales happening with CryptoZilla at the moment. It's like, one every sort of 3 to 5 hours. And yeah, I honestly don't know if I'll be able to sell it at that price in time, so I might even need to try and sell it and lose even more money. So, there's definitely projects, like I said, I'm losing on if I'm trying to do a quick flip, and that's definitely not the way to go unless you're happy to lose money. And I am okay with losing money, right? So that's why I'm doing the quick flips. So I'm okay with losing money because I know that long term I'm going to make more, right? Now, these are sort of things that I have. I also ended up getting a Moody Crow, which is on Ethereum Layer 2. Now, Ethereum Layer 2 is another topic that we'll talk about on a later episode, because right now we're on Ethereum Layer 1, which is on where OpenSea is. And where it exists. So these are sort of like the projects that I'm in at the moment. I flipped some successful ones. I also flipped a Yakuza Cats. So it's called the Yakuza Cats Society, with spaces in between each word. And I bought it for 0.2 ETH, I think, and I sold it for 0.5 ETH, and that was in the space of like 5 hours. So, there is another example of me making another 1,500 New Zealand dollars. And then it dropped back down because the project revealed itself, and then it went back up. Now it's again worth half an ETH. So yeah, it's these are just these are sort of things that I look for when I'm flipping. Long term, I absolutely look at who's behind it. I also look at, do they have a very big long-term plan, and is there a lot of physical utility? For example, with the Founders Key, right? So as I mentioned, there is a quarterly dinner, and there's a whole lot of other opportunities that get presented to those owners of that NFT project. And then VFriends, it's got the VCon, and it's got a bunch of other, they'll airdrop their holders, right? Yeah, so airdrop meaning they'll literally send them free NFTs. Not all of them, but you get the chance to get that. Or there might be a really strong community derived factor, such as with Mechaverse, right? Where there was, huge community base, and therefore it drove up the perceived value of it. And those are really the main things that I look for, honestly. I love looking for the art. The art's not actually a huge thing to go into for me when it comes to long-term vision, because there's art projects that people just sort of get in for the art, and they don't usually have a strong utility factor. I really like it when there's new potential communities getting involved. For example, the Yakuza Cat Society has a strong Japanese base as well, right? So it's reaching a whole new community, a whole new space physically, which is really beautiful, which is why I know it's going to do really well. And it's one of the first to do it in such a way where it's sort of half an American team and half a Japanese team, right? And I know there's a few others, but this is the biggest one that I know of that's done this, which is why long-term it's going to do well. So yeah, those are sort of things that I look for. Hopefully this has helped. I think it's really it to touch on today. I'm going to speak about a lot more next week about long-term great investments at under 0.5 Ether. So there's sort of good entry points for a lot of people, and that way you can make some money, right? And again, this is not financial advice. I'm not capable of giving financial advice. However, that's completely up to you. I'm just sort of sharing my opinions, point of views, and experience. So with that being said, my friend and I have gone into business together, and we are actually currently taking on Aligned People. aligned people in the space of investments, right? So basically we get a very small profit of the profits that the people that decide to invest in the space that we're creating. And we're only working with people that we feel have a very strong vision going forward. So I'll speak more about that in maybe the next episode, because that's more about the investments themselves and sort of great investments to get into. So I'll speak more about that next episode. But other than that, that's I think the episode. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, such a pleasure. I love you guys. It would be amazing if you could give us a good old share, a good old subscribe, a good old even review would be fantastic. 6 stars, thanks guys. And other than that, I think I'll just see you guys next time. I'm looking forward to it. Cheers for tuning in. Catch you later. Bye.